him. He know for sure he's not on my level, but he got people around him that think he want to be that man. He know for sure.
Today on the show, we have experts, actors, boxing stars, and business moguls. They all come together to celebrate the fight show. Before we get started, we'd like to introduce our sponsor.
This fight, I think it's safe to say that no one believed you could win. God did.
Jab Juice Social Media Marketing makes it possible for entrepreneurs today to build a power brand and gain total control.
You can take on the world in a good suit, you know? Diggy bob, handkerchief, cufflinks.
And literally help them influence the world in massive numbers. Business is compiled of only two things: audience and operations.
What's your walk around weight, right?
Like 230, 240.
Is it like who else makes sense besides David Benavidez? I know any fight he makes is gonna make money, but like who else really makes sense for him to?
Wow, amazing! Are you gonna be watching the pay-per-view this weekend?
If y'all fucking think Canelo's scared of somebody, y'all crazy. I'm just telling you, this game comes down to this right here. What? And again, David is my guy. I like him. What the fuck is David gonna do that he ain't seen before? He's bigger, you know, and all of that, but he knows how to break down guys. When they fight, I'll be front row.
Take your life to a different stratosphere in 2024 with Jab Juice Social Media. It's a different level in social jubi.
When it comes to the opponents that you fought, where do you rank him, or is it
Mediocre.
All right. This is going to be the most unpredictable weekend of fighting, but I can tell you one thing.
You don't even hit that hard.
All right, well,
you don't even hit that hard.
When I hit you with the left,
you don't even hit that hard,
What
bro.
did you do?
I'm gonna break you up. I'm telling you. Every time I tell y'all something,
you know what happened.
Don't it happen?
We're about to get it popping with Gervonta Davis this weekend versus Frank Martin. So
Frank, that was a very intense stare down. Can you tell the fans what was being said right there?
We just both ready. You know, we ready for tomorrow. I'm stepping on his ass tomorrow, period.
we were having some technical difficulties, so we might be able to see if I can bring my man Otis in. Let's see if it's working right now.
Can you guys hear me?
I got you. So here's something that I wanted to share with the audience, because what we're going to do is not only get into a breakdown, but we're going to talk about the style matchups and a couple of conversations that I wanted to share. Otis and I spoke to just recently. We thought it would be a good idea to really kind of give you guys who are fans from the outside really more of a bird's eye view of how people who are actually in the sport really look at it. And it's going to be very cool. So before we get going, what I'm going to do is show you a little bit of some of you may not know about, like Martin. And that's one of the things that I just don't think people have taken time to really digest. What about you, Otis? What do you feel about when you saw Martin?
To answer your question, I sat back yesterday, which I had a promo video of me watching several fights of Frank Martin. He's a really good fighter. He's capable of a lot of things. I think the biggest thing for him is going to be adapting to the level that he's at now, because now he's at the elite level. He's past the contender stage. He's even past the champion stage. Is he going to get stage fright, or is he going to excel at this stage?
That stage fright is real. It's going to be about a 3 or 4 second delay because I'm listening to you from my audio. But, when people don't really understand what that means is you don't realize how many new ebbs and flows come into it when you get into that next level. I think the kid has the talent. He reminds me of Zab Judah a little bit. What about you? I mean, when I see him move his feet, he moves a lot. He moves kind of swiftly to the left and right. And I don't know if he got that pop like Zab, but he reminds me of Zab. A little too much muscle for my liking at that weight class. But, when you look at Frank Martin, and anybody who's down in the comment boxes, you can drop it down there. What is your thoughts about it? But I want to ask someone who's former world champion about this. He's a little more qualified.
I think he's a very capable fighter. He's well-rounded. He's not as dynamic as Zab Judah, but I can tell you that the southpaw and kind of like his style reminds of Zab Judah, but not as explosive and fast as Zab Judah. More like a Timothy Bradley, especially with the muscle content. I think that his punching technique can be flawed at times. I think when he gets into the boxing mode, it's funny because when he gets in the boxing mode coming forward, he kind of punches from the back seat. What I mean by that is like instead of throwing your punches, he kind of reaches like in caution with his punches, and that could get him in trouble. Another flaw is that he punches with his chin in the air, and that can get him in trouble. Biggest flaw that I think maybe his nemesis in this fight, if Derek James doesn't correct it, is him instead of stepping to the person like you do in your drills with your step, lateral movement, and you're stepping forward. People don't understand that you really have to step forward and step and replace forward so you keep your balance. He jumps in. And jumping in, he's gonna jump on that hot spot with Tank, because Tank is gonna, be setting the counter up for him.
You've got a lot built up. You're gonna take it out on him.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy out there. So I hope he prepared and hope he been training hard. So tomorrow is gonna be a great night for the sport of boxing.
And I also want to know, you've been out 14 months. Have you been practicing that backflip?
Yeah. You wanna see?
Hey, love it. Good luck to you tomorrow night. Everyone, Gervonta Davis.
That's a great observation. As I sit here and think about it, a lot of people don't really have a lot of footage on them. And when you pick up on things like that, obviously Coach Calvin has picked up on it. And I know how people really don't understand how much of a dog that dude is, man. And when I've just had the liberty to be in the trenches of the DMV, and it's really not what I'm gonna tell you something. This is how I've always graded the fight game. On the West Coast, it was very, very educated. When I go back to the days of, John Brown, really put a real good educational thing that was accessible to people, and then the Contender Show. All right, and I wanted to really be clear to you, individuals who really don't understand. There's textbook boxing, and then there's boxing off of talent, autopilot, which is a lot of what happens on the East Coast. So therefore, I wanted to make sure that was accessible for the East Coast. So, 30 books later, I wanted to make sure that fighters had a process that they were developing in the game. And when Otis talks about these little details, those details are so pronounced when it's fight time. And I'm one to say, I don't try to teach anybody anything in a training camp. We learn new skill after you fought, and then for your entire off season where you don't have a fight schedule, you're learning. When it's training camp, we're implementing. If you don't learn it pre-training camp, you're not going to take it into the fight, outside of maybe twisting a jab or something. But a real skill takes time to manifest. So Otis hit the nail on the head when it comes down to what these guys actually will bring into the fight on fight night. You cannot push punches against Tank, and you definitely can't leave your chin in the air. When you see Tank and you see this layoff he's had, and where do you feel like that layoff could probably show up? Because he's always cautious. Where do you feel like that thing may show its ugly head, if at all?
I think that his layoff, he could have some timing issues, early in the fight, meaning that he might see something in a window, go to hit the guy, and Martin could already be gone. Especially if Martin is floating. Martin is actually at his best when he's floating. If he's coming forward, I think that's when he could get in trouble on Tank. If he just floats around and uses his jab, he could actually, his jab in that counter half step left cross that he has, he could be very effective with that. With Tank, I think that he could get frustrated early. He could give some rounds away to Martin early, but he has that absolute thing, which is power. You know, that's the equalizer. And with the flaws that I pointed out with Martin a little bit earlier, I think that's how the story goes, that his power equalizes it at the end of the day.
I'm listening to you really finish that off clean, and you're dead right. And I do think that frustration would settle in. How that it may, can you hear me now? Make sure that because all of the people that are actually listening, they really don't, have that point of view, that point of reference. But what I'm here to make it clear is, when you don't have confidence because in your own head, and that's why Tank is so good at what he does, because he's his own worst enemy and he thinks of things. He even admitted how scared he was before the Ryan Garcia fight, which works in his favor. He's not going to not come to the ring because he's scared. He's not going to not show up in the back of the school at 3 p.m. to take the fight because he's scared. His fear is his asset. It makes him super sharp. It's his extra antenna. And that's one of the things when you look at Martin. I think he has a very intimidating frame. But when you fight a guy with too much muscle, you were the exception. You, Evander Holyfield, and I won't even say Ken Norton, maybe Ken Norton, were guys who had muscle but could fight. Like Jeff Lacey was eventually exposed. It's very few guys who got away with having that Adonis look, right? And he got that Adonis kind of look. Go ahead.
What's his name? The Nigerian that went to jail. What's his name?
Ikabe Abuche.
Abuche. He was good.
He was a monster. I think he was one of the most fierce men that never got his opportunity to reign as champion, because he got to be the top dog. But him and Lennox Lewis in the ring, that would have solidified who Lennox was. And the same thing I think about with Leon Bias versus Michael Jordan. People really didn't get to see Michael Jordan's nemesis. But if you go back to like 1984, 84, 85, 84, Maryland versus North Carolina, or watch the Leon Bias documentary. This is the only guy that Michael Jordan. He took everything that Michael Jordan did to everybody else, come back on them, steal balls in a championship game, and was drafted first in the draft in 85 to the Boston Celtics, and never got to get on the court because he overdosed on cocaine, the night after the draft. And so Michael Jordan, his nemesis, his true nemesis, it would have been like, playing against Kobe Bryant if he was 6'8". That's a scary thought. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly what William Bias was. And one of the surgeons that worked with me, anesthesiologist, did his autopsy. And, it's unfortunate, but your real nemesis is there. But when I look at this kid, Frank Martin, I think that he has a lot of natural abilities, and he had admitted it. One thing that happens with guys who start boxing late, that one thing is for real, they do depend on just all of the abilities that God given you naturally. And they don't really have that settled in muscle memory when times are really troubling, when you have to learn a skill. Like, you can wrestle with somebody until you wrestle against somebody who has a gold medal in wrestling in the Olympics. You can wrestle, but that's what I mean. Like, it'll be so many levels before you see that you got to learn more. And so you get to that point. What do you think about, when you see these guys? You were one, you started boxing late, but you had the ability, like you admitted, you said, hey, I was able to copy things that I saw other people do real well. But when you look at someone like Frank Martin, do you think he could pull that off in a fight like this?
It's really going to, again, I feel like, I was thinking about it. In the last couple of fights we broke down, Darius James has been the trainer. So it's really going to come down to how much Darius has poured into him in between the last fight and the Tank fight. You can grow a lot, and these moments can actually make you excel because you realize that this is the biggest opportunity that you have in your life, and there's never going to be another one like it. So with that being said, Frank Martin can excel. It's all going to come down to did he lock himself in the gym? I'm a big visual learner, and I think that children and adolescents, they learn off of what they call model learning. Like you can see somebody do something and then mimic it. If you're especially if you're a good athlete in boxing, I think Frank could do that if he knew about that. I don't know if a lot of boxers know about that. I knew about that because I came from football, and in football you had to, hey, this is how you do the drill. 3 people go before you. Oh man, okay, he messed it up that way. Okay, I can't do that. Boom, I'm gonna do it this way.
Wow. Man, you were an anomaly, believe it or not. You just really don't. You probably think you do realize how much of a unique athlete you were. I knew it immediately. And then when you went pro, got into the real, dog eat dog boxing world, and you were able to accomplish that same thing that you did in the Contender. Like, that's just, that's not normal, man. Like the amount of people that have been here, we could possibly say you are an alien. It's so rare. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you probably sometimes think about it, but really think about it. Look how many people didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Sergio Moore had already had a boxing career going, when he went over there and did that and won, and then came out and won again. And now he's having a lot of success. But, really, dude, that's not a thing. You know that, right? It's not another Kobe Bryant coming out of high school. And then, a decade later, here comes LeBron. And then it's just not a thing. Like, then you haven't seen another one. Then you got Zion, who comes in is a bust. Like, and so it'll be another generation before that happens again. So you think about how few people can do that. This kid is really stacked. The cards are really stacked. And when you think about him, when you see his courage. So everybody, I want you guys to know that we have a little checklist, how we will kind of match these guys up, because one of the things that I know about a fight, power matters very little when you are dealing with high skills. When you got the last southpaws that lined up against face to face was, if anybody can put it in the comment boxes before I say it, we're going to give them access to the school of boxing so you can just kind of really understand boxing. But 3, 2, 1, I don't see nobody commenting down in the comment boxes. Who were the last 2 southpaws that faced each other in a title fight? If you can name it, you're golden. All you got to do is give us your email address and we got you. But those 2 people were Terrence Crawford going up against Errol Spence. And of course, Terrence is a switch hitter, but he wasn't playing around that night. He came out there to do business. He didn't have time to be switching. So he went out there and did business. But when you got guys at that skill set level, it's not about the power. It's about placement, where you are, how much time did you invest in breaking this guy down, win rounds or not. The fight don't start till after the 6th round. Get it? And then you got to make it through to the 9th so you can get to the championship round. There are 4 quarters to a fight. And that video I did just so people could really understand what happens as the body depletes itself of oxygen and that adrenaline rush goes away. So one of the things that we decided to do that we think would be good for you, especially if you're betting, is to kind of give you a bird's eye view of what the matchup should look like and who's actually stronger in these areas. So when it comes down to southpaw versus southpaw, we're going to say who has the power advantage. And I'm going to let Otis give me that answer. And any one of you guys, you take part, you can drop down who has the power advantage. I'm talking not like strong, like muscles. I mean, hit you in the jaw, his jaw broke and he's out conscious. I mean, who got that kind of pop in your estimation?
All day is Tank. I mean, he has the kind of power that, that comes about in like every 100 years. This guy, no matter if it's in the beginning of the fight, the middle of the fight, or the end of the fight, which is highly impressive because a lot of guys that can punch in the beginning of the fight, like Mike Tyson's, for example, they can't punch like that past the 6th round because, they get tired. And the other thing that people don't understand is if you're a power puncher and you miss, that's like the video game where you lose a man or you lose energy, so definitely Tank wins the power game.
Yeah. People really don't. I did a video. Thanks for that, Otis. I did a video about the types of power. All right. There's that thudding power like George Foreman has, that he can hit you on top of the head and you can't feel your feet. Like Riddick Bowe did the Evander Holyfield. He said he hit me on top of the head and I couldn't feel my feet going back to the corner. They're like, you good? He was like, yeah, if I don't need to walk. I'm like, and then George Foreman would hit you. And Ken Norton said, his whole head went numb. That's a scary kind of power. And then there's that power like Ernie Shavers, when he hits you and he hits you so hard that it's like it's cutting through and breaking bones. You know what I'm saying? So that's the act of power, not just force and velocity. And then you have Tyson power, where he's built from the bottom. And then he really has that explosiveness, that speed to go with the torque and all of that. And when you get hit by that, you're just blanking out. And so he was knocking guys out. He was discombobulating them. But at the same time, he was short-circuiting them. And when you see Joe Frazier, he's built from the ground up. He's built from the feet up. When he hits you, it's like getting hit with one of those sledgehammers, just because he could just tear through. The punch was fast and the weight shift was there. So he had the velocity with the punch, the speed, but it was dense. So, Tank has that special kind of power. And I put him somewhere in the category like a Mike Tyson. It's so quick. You typically never see it. And when he hits you, you're hit. Like Bud Crawford. When he hits you, you're hit. And you're like, you might want to get up, but you're like, what just happened? So those are a couple of different, defining types of power. You can look at a person's hand. You can look at a person's forearm. You can look at a person's clavicle, lower back, shoulder blade, because you could have the cup, the hunch. Like there are different things that you can watch. Torso length, and you can tell if the person has that kind of power. If you can just look at particular things, and I always knew this. So anytime someone was taking a fight and they were overlooking the guy, and I'm like, did you see his clavicle? Just look. Like, you just don't understand where the power comes from. And most people don't know. 99.9% of the people, they don't understand how many different things that you can see that are basically the type of power the guy has. And so that's what we always want people to know. And that's why it's good to have defense. The next question, Otis, is who has the better focus when it comes down to ring generalship? Who can set things up better, Tank or Martin?
I think Tank can set things up better because he's been there at a high level before. He comes from a deep amateur pedigree as well. And then he's fought the higher opposition. Definitely Tank. And if Martin passes this part of the grading curve, he could actually win this fight, because if he could Tank can be outboxed very easily. If you can stay away from his power or handicap his power in a fight plan, then you can win. So if Martin can overcome this particular area or detail, then I would say he would have his hand raised.
Yeah. If we can just stay away from his power.
Easier said than done.
Great answer. It was great until you said, like, yeah. He can stay in the locker room. No, you're right. He could Tank can be set up. But people don't understand the series of skills that have to be put together in order to do that. The first thing you have to make them do. Now, should I put the recipe out there on how to beat Tank, or should I put it in the reel and get some views off of it?
Put it in the reel.
Because I could tell you exactly how you beat a style like Tank based on, because I understand how to make one of the things that work in his favor, which is his fear. I know how to do things to make him forget that he has that fear. And so that's the first thing you have to realize and teach fighters when they're boxing, that there are a lot more elements into the boxing match that if you understand, if you really study fighters, if you really study character, if you really studied human behavior and then went to train, you'd have a whole lot more success if you really understood those little things that matter. That's why when I say, if you're sick, don't go to a doctor, find a biologist. Because biologists study the human body internally, literally, and can cure you with things that are natural. A doctor is a medical person. He's going to prescribe medicine. So if you're sick, he's just going to make you sicker. The biologist is going to deliver you from that situation, not put a Band-Aid on it. So therefore, if you study that way, you really learn. And this is the main reason why we make sure that everybody has access to quality stuff. There's a QR code, and there's our 5 layers of defense video. We're giving away it for free. We want people to know defense. So if you got a cell phone, put that on your QR code and get that and use that, learn, because we don't want you guys to get hurt out here. But I love that answer. It was great until you said stay away from the power. you lost me there. But one of the things that I noticed yesterday is, Errol Spence kind of had a couple of things to say, and I realized he was there because he's the promoter for Frank Martin. But what do you think about Errol Spence taking part in this? Did you see the press conference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw the press conference and everything. It was actually good because being a psychologist and everything, I can tell the mind games of both guys. Tank, people get annoyed with Tank because they think like, oh, here's this street thug mentality, da. Tank always wants to remind himself of where he came from, because he knows that he does never ever want to return to that hell. And if he can remind himself where he came from, there's nobody in the world that's gonna beat him, as long as he's thinking about that. Mm-hmm. The moment his mind gets off of that and he starts thinking about, like how they say, he starts thinking about his silk pajamas as a rich man, then that's when he's gonna get in trouble. Frank did a great job of not provoking Tank, but making him think like, oh, you know what? Hey, thank you for the opportunity, brother. Hey, you right, you got me. Yeah, you got it, and everything. Earl did a good job of coming in and kind of like, it's like when the principal comes in elementary school, right? And the bad kid, the class clown, the bully is running amok, and the principal says, hey, sit your ass down. And that's what Earl did. He said, hey, sit down, man. Look, thank you for giving us the opportunity, but hey, my guy's a good fighter. You're a good fighter. It's going to be a great fight.
That's crazy, boy. Look, But you hit that on the head, and you do have that psychology behind you, that understanding of the mindset. This is why I say you had that was traits of an anomaly. But when you do think about this, and Frank has been calculated with being kind of reserved, and when he barked, he still knew how to draw the line. I paid close attention to him. I think a lot of it is he respects. He know what he's in there against, because he's been in there, and there was a reason why he was kind of subdued when they were supposed to spar, and then they did spar because Tank said he forced it. So I do understand not feeling like you're at the point where you're ready to get in there with that guy, because it's really tough. People don't know how nervous you get in those moments in there when you have to work, right? I remember one of my guys, he just had tremendous power, and I know my rib had been bruised, and I had to go in there, and we had to train the next day and work. And so I got on. I stopped. I didn't wear a lot of body vests, so I would take shots, and I like that. And my son's the same way, just like contact. But I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to kind of fake this for a while, like for real, because he really hits hard. I mean, he was knocking guys out with headgear on, 16-ounce gloves. Like, he knocked the dude out unconscious while we were live streaming on the page one day, just so they could see a couple of rounds. And I was talking in front of the camera, so they couldn't really see what was happening in the sparring. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, this guy, boom, boom, and just a real dangerous knockout. So I never did that again, like, because it was just a scary situation. And like I said, though, they were seeing me. They won't see in the sparring, but the sparring was happening in the background. But it's a scary situations. I've had guys leave out the back door when they when was supposed to spar and go up in levels and spar. I seen guys leave, just was like vacate. So I understand why he probably was nervous to spar Tank, but let it be known, fear is the number one conductor of courage.
Yes, sir.
And when it counts the most, that's when a person will rise, because he's not going to shrink because of fear. Now, if he knows he's going out and he's blacking out from those punches, that's just kind of what you got to do what you got to do. But I think he does have a lot of respect for Tank. It shows in his eyes. I don't know when he gets hit how he's actually going to respond. I think he really truly knows that it's either going to get to a place where he gets really lucky and things go in his favor. You know, maybe the ref calls the fight in his favor the way he needs them to, and Tank is kind of off long enough to get some rounds. Other than that, I think he's going to show too much respect for Tank in the fight. That's just my analysis pre-fight. But when they walk to the ring, I always have a different, bell to go off. But when you think about it, do you think he has what it takes to bite down in the 10th round, if he makes it to the 10th round, the 11th round, the fortitude to beat someone like Tank who just don't care?
I would say if Frank Martin wins the fight, I see it going how the first Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley fight went, where Pacquiao knew that he had those bombs and everything, and he just waited. He sat back and let Tim get 5 rounds in the bag without even realizing it. Right? He's like, oh, all right, I'll shake this off, shake that off, and then before he knew it, people were telling him, hey man, you got to get going, you got to get going. So then he starts hitting Tim. Boom. Even broke his ankle at one point in time, made him twist his ankle, but Tim held on, and I think that Martin can do that if it gets later into the fight. Now, the thing is that Tank has even more disruptive power than Manny Pacquiao. So if Tank touches you, it's over. So at any point in time, like in that fight between that first bell and that last bell, you're not safe. So I do believe that Frank can do that. Like I keep alluding to, it's all going to come down to how focused he is in the moment. Is he distracted by, because people don't understand, like when the multimedia behind a big fight like this will put you in a trance. There's pictures of myself even before huge fights on Golden Boy cards or everything, like I think with Danny Green, and I'm going like this. I think I talked to you about like that before. I'm like this. That's from the flashes and the cameras and the media. They suck your soul out. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Martin, because I would advise anybody out there, any trainer, manager, do not let the media pull and tug your fighter on these interviews. Like give them 3-4 interviews and get to the house.
Man, that was one of the best points you have. You've made some great points over the years, man. But that was that sucked the soul out of you. That experience that you had, like where it's like people don't realize what those guys are going through. So thanks for bringing that to the forefront. They don't know that, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about the point of reference you're bringing. You've done something that not even a percentage of the planet will ever experience. To be a person in a position to walk down an aisle for a championship of any sort, let alone the world title. And, like, especially when you're fighting against guys who were like Jeff Lacey, who were just, they were like Thor. I mean, you're fighting guys who had the kind of pedigree that could literally, if you got called out there on Quiz Street, you out there on Quiz Street for real. But when we look at that fight, I think this fight stacks up. There was a segment that I wanted to bring to the forefront about what do you think about when you stack them up, man? And this is Vegas. Who has the better corner of the two to make adjustments?
Derrick James hasn't been winning these fights, but he's been getting a lot of experience, but I would say Calvin Ford definitely is the more experienced corner. Not only has he been around a lot of USA boxing coaches and things of that nature over the years, but him and Tank are like, they're like body, mind, and soul. They're like, they're so connected that they may be the most connected team besides Dundee and Ali in the history of boxing. So I would have to give Tank's a corner the nod on that with Calvin Ford and those guys.
I was reading. Yeah. Okay. So you're basing everything kind of on what's going on with Derrick James as of late. Well, really, the honest truth is, if you really look at the fighters that he's produced, he does have a strength. He instills a belief system. I think Derrick James doesn't get credit for the thing that he actually does. Charlo, Errol Spence, and Ryan Garcia have had a belief system instilled in them, regardless of the couple of losses. So hats off to Derrick James for really bringing something that people don't even give him the credit. He knows how to teach you how to throw, really, really sit down on your punch combinations and teach you how to really fight like a real throwback, real fighter. He does do not. Robert Garcia is known for technically teaching the jab properly so the fighter can have a better chance. That's why you still see Robert Garcia coaching fighters at the highest level, because he brings something to fighters. I said Robert Garcia for years and years and years has Jab University. And I said, Roger Mayweather got reaction university. You know, he can teach you that reaction drill training like nobody else in the world. And then you got Floyd Mayweather Sr., who's a defense in that shell university. Now, there's a balance when you got guys who are like Virgil Hunter, who got into your mind and could pull things out of you that you never, ever thought you could pull from that place, because you never seen yourself in that place. And then you never thought that you could meet the devil while you were still breathing. And Virgil Hunter could pull you from that place and make you bring out whatever you had, and if it was going to be enough. But our guy over here, Alan the Amazing, Alon's the Amazing. I can't. Alon's so amazing. Okay. Yeah. Alan, so amazing. However, I don't mean to bust your name up, but thank you for putting this up. But he said Tank gives up rounds on purpose. Tank would be like Wilder once he's out of the protection plan by the PBC and Heyman. He would get exposed. Well, it's fighting. So if you get in the ring, you're going to get exposed, because getting exposed is showing how you can be hit. If you get in the ring, you're going to get hit. So I don't know if it's called exposed. I wouldn't go that far. You don't beat guys up that should beat you if you don't have something. Boxing is a fight. They're prize fighting. So if you fight anybody inside of outside in the schoolyard, you're going to get exposed, because there's no perfect defense. But if you don't have good defense, you use that QR code and you go up there and you get that 5 layers of defense, because none of y'all, not one person up here understands defense like they think they do. And if you do, raise your hand up and I'll bring you right down to South Florida and I'll show you that you don't know defense. That's all you got to do. Please take me up on that. We'll make sure that you get the opportunity to test your defense. It's all the smoke you would like to experience. And this isn't bravado. This is just, I want you, because sometimes you might believe you do have it, but I'm here to prove to you that you don't. You know, and thanks for that. Let me see what my man Paul, hold up, I got my guy. Let me see what he's saying. Well, a doctor makes you slicker. A doctor makes you slicker. I was great until said the heavily absolute generalization. Doctors study biology. Biologists don't study medicine. Man, what are you talking about? I mean, geez, dude, that's all you could take from this conversation. What's going on? Tank wins by KO. What do you think about Haney Ryan not being paid for their fight yet? What? I didn't know that. That's Coach Haraba in the School of Boxing. Coach, that is crazy, but that's boxing. That's boxing. Otis, what do you think? Did you hear about them not being paid yet?
Yeah, I knew that they hadn't been paid, and it was because the pretty much Ryan violated some contractual issues and things of that nature, and they got to investigate it. So then after that being over, they should be paid. Now it was kind of. Hold on, was that? I don't remember. Was that fight in Vegas? No, the fight was in New York. New York has a lot of different rules than a lot of these other states do. The big 3 states being New York, California, and Nevada. But New York, their commission does not play. Miss Mavella is not playing no games. So she wants to have they will hold those checks until that investigation is over, pretty much.
You got that right. Boy, you don't even want that smoke over there. Vegas don't play either. Vegas don't, their commission, like they don't get, like they don't care, dude. It's nothing but money in those states. So they gonna get money. It's in these weak states. Like if you fight out there, like up in DC, like you can wash, you can move the needle over there with anybody. But you can't get away with that stuff in New York and Vegas. You can forget about it. The fight capitals, man. But that's crazy. I hadn't heard anything about it. So much has been in front of me. And I'm a producer of content, so I don't get to indulge it all as much as everybody gets to consume it. But that's insane. But the rules is the rules, and you gotta abide, or something goes wrong. But this kid, as Robert is responding to my man Allen, he said Tank fights nothing like Wilder. He has actual skill. Y'all just look at the power. Yeah, you're right. That was a good comeback. And I would take other questions, but I just got too many people on this thing. I can't get to everybody, but leave your questions and we will definitely get it popping with you. Let me see. He's like, does Frank have a chance? Yeah, he has a chance. You know, Buster Douglas had a chance. You know what I'm saying? Conor McGregor, like, you know, everybody got a chance, man. This dude can fight, but there are certain stages that you have to acquire when you are going into boxing. And here's how you can measure fighters. So if anybody else has questions, just be sure to leave them down in the comment boxes, and I'll make sure that you get your questions get answered. There are a lot, but here's the deal. I did a video so that you can have just kind of like a premise of it. But when you own a university of boxing, it's hard to give everybody everything every time. But here are four phases to boxing, right? Phase one, which Frank didn't get. He didn't get to walk into a gym and just learn the basics of boxing. He came in there with all the athleticism. And so he kind of wanted to get to stage 3. You want to see the advanced stuff in stage 2, because the basics is the foundation. That's what you're going to rely on when you're fighting for titles. You're going to go back to that because that's the most simple form of a fight. Dictation, understanding distance and range, and being able to control. Whoever has control over that wins the fight 99% of the time, barring someone slip on a banana peel. When you think about this, then phase 2 is the advanced levels of boxing. And in advance, it helps you get and apply different skills in sets to overcome whatever the opposition has on a much deeper level. And that's basics and advanced. And now this is where phase 3, where you get to the phase 3 is the unconventional styles of boxing. When you think about boxing, you get hands up, cover your face, chin tucked, shoot the jab, hand back to face. But when you're in unconventional style, you're in a peekaboo. You're squared up. You're in the Philly shell. One hand down. It goes against all the rules of boxing. You're in the cutie style, chin out, both hands down, playing around, and then turtle shell and all of the other arm bar training systems. That's unconventional styles of boxing. And when you get to that phase, I think that's kind of what fighters that have natural athleticisms, they do. If you watch them do really basic exercises, they always have flaws in them because they never mastered them. And then you go to phase 4. This is where you create all of those different layers before, and we call this your craft in boxing. You've literally made this your own, and that's your style now. That's why I was teaching in our curriculum the peekaboo, the Philly shell, the cutie style, learning how to know all of the different postures, not just American style boxing or Cuban style boxing, but knowing how to posture people at ranges and control the distance and lateral movement and fighting off of your back foot. So if you start learning all of that stuff first, then you have no foundation to base it on. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's what we have now. It's a mishmash. I was just on a call with a guy who fought, won on every level. And he said, I was fighting on autopilot all that time. I'm learning more outside of my career. But when you fighting, you fighting. You just fighting to win when you fighting to win. What was your experience like when you was learning boxing? Were you learning on the job, Otis? Share to them what it was like.
Well, my first trainer, Nasser Navarone, did a really good job of instilling perfect defense and conditioning. That's probably how I learned boxing so fast. And then once I went to Tommy Brooks on the reality show and everything, he told me why I was doing everything, which helped me because it wasn't that I couldn't do any certain things. I didn't know when to do them. That's what happens when you have a lot of athletic ability. You don't know when to do this, when to do that. You just know that you can do it. And then you end up looking a little robotic, right? So then once I broke that phase, I went to Ray Woods, who was Diego Corrales' father. And he taught me a lot about rhythm and ring generalship, organs, like where to hit people at, how to handicap fighters and things of that nature. Then I went to John Tandy, which was really a real treat. John Tandy is a guy that he makes fight plans for every big fighter in the world, like the Klitschko brothers, things of that nature. He breaks people down on film. He brings the write-ups to them. And I was at Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, actually, when he was doing it for other people. I was actually in camp at his house, and I would sit there and watch hours and hours of video with them and ask like why. And then I learned how important it is to stay in the center of the ring 90% of the time. How important it is to throw 90% jabs. How important it is to do a step and replace or be unbalanced and things of that nature. And then after that, I went back to Sacramento, and I went with one of the best trainers there is, and that's Saifuddin Mateen, who taught me the absolute science of how to do it all, handicap people, why people do whatever, watching people in slow motion before fights. So I really got a great education on boxing as this thing went. But then that's when I got to the level what you were just talking about, where I wasn't, because I was a 1-2 fighter at first, almost like a Larry Holmes type guy or a classic boxer, right? And then by the end of my career, that's when I could, do the turtle shell. I could do the Philly shell. I was doing stuff off a natural reaction, head movement, countering, splitting people's shots. I knew why and when to do everything.
That's big, man. Like, as you said, everything you just said, because that was a lot to unpack. That could have been a book right there. Tell me this, because that was a beautiful insight, because you got these guys who learning on Instagram and YouTube. That ain't available there. Just gonna throw that out there. So be careful and use that QR code. And that QR code guides you to the 5 layers of defense, because you need to know defense. Now, what if all that you learn, what if you could go to one place when you decided to go box and all that was in one place? You go through kindergarten, then you go to the 1st grade. All right. Now, we got to take a little intermission because there are people who have questions that they want answered, and it's such a busy day, and we are trying to make sure we cover everybody. So here's a great question from my man, Fight Lupus Atlas. So his young brother, and the number one thing is to make sure you guys are being steered in the right direction. And so this question is really good, and I have a couple of other questions from my man Undertaker over here on YouTube. So be patient. I'm going to get to you as well, because having access to someone who can answer a question is very important. And that's the number one thing that you have to get yourself around. So don't walk around with questions in your head in boxing. There's a reason why 100% of these guys retire and they are under like the poverty level, because they didn't ask enough questions. So this question is important. And if you want to make sure that you're going in the right direction, here's how you go about it. And thank you guys for taking the time to hang out. But he said, my brother is 17 and want to become a professional boxer, but I don't know where to start or know if we are headed in the right direction. So the moment that you're asking yourself that question, you're basically answering that for yourself. I would ask you to think about this. You know, would you walk into Apple and try to become an engineer of a phone? Would you go into NASA and ask to be a part of the astronaut team? Well, that's the same position that you're doing with boxing, because boxing has so many intricacies. Look how many millions of people fight. You know about 12 fighters. You can name 12 fighters, hopefully. And the rest of those guys, the millions and millions of guys, don't have leadership, a mentorship. We have 200 coaches in the school of boxing, and all of those guys know more or less where they're going because they have somebody to ask. I had someone to ask. 134 years of boxing experience matters. So I can always ask a question. I ask questions about guys who are southpaws. You know, how do you know he's a real southpaw? He said, watch his toe. His toe is going to point upward. That'll tell you if he's a real southpaw, if he's someone who's converted. And that means you can take him off his line and put him in many uncomfortable places. There are a lot of things that you don't really understand. Like you don't understand none of the stuff that we're talking about. So what would preface you to take someone into that dungeon? We just had a guy rush a guy into a pro fight. Guy lost. Yeah, the coach doesn't have to take that with him. He's depressed, but what happens is the fighter, that's going to be his brand. Like he's going to be known as the guy not to mess with because he's already lost in his first fight. He doesn't. So you're never going to get money. You're never going to get leverage in a negotiation. So you train all those weeks and you don't know how to even do a contract with your sparring partners, the contract with the gym. You don't know how to contract with your fighter. You don't know how to get yourself to management that's going to actually really take your fighter and position him, because you need a matchmaker. Do you have a matchmaker? Do you have management? Do you have a sponsor? Do you have people who will endorse you? Do you have investors around you? Do you have people who will guide you? So you need a Sherpa. And a Sherpa is someone that will lead your direction. And so if you don't have any of those boxes checked, do not go pro. Professional boxing is like the NFL. You don't know what's coming because there's so many things coming. All right. So that's why Tank is at the top, because he learned from somebody who knew. Floyd knew how the business worked. So that's how Tank got into that position. If he would have stayed with Adrian Broner, not to throw shade at Adrian Broner, he wouldn't have gotten as far as he did, and his brand wouldn't be what it is today. We wouldn't be spending $100 on a pay-per-view. See, Floyd knew that blueprint. He taught it to Tank. And so that's how you preface, are you making the right decision? So that was a great question. I'm glad you popped it up, my guy. And if you need to know how to handle that, type the word school and go to that page. All you got to do is type the word school. If you're on YouTube, you have to go to the link in the description. But type school and you go to that page and you can learn about how to find mentorship and stuff. And if you are questioning yourself, I just gave you all the questions of the people that you need around you. If you don't have those people around, do not get in front of us. What are you going to do? You know, you're going to beat the coaches that know all of this stuff. You can't. Okay. So take boxing serious and stop playing with it. And don't have someone taking losses because you didn't lead them right. You're a bad father. You're a bad mentor. Mentors and leaders ask questions. So don't play in this sport, because you got people like me that's going to stop people like you and use you for opponents. All right. So don't do that. All right. Type the word school and basically learn more about how to go about doing it. What do you think about having two active fighters promoting a pay-per-view fight on the main card who at fault promoting Tank and Spence or the PBC and Amazon? I don't know what you mean by that. What do you guys think about having two active fighters promoting? Well, oh, I get it. You got to know business. You got to have an exit strategy for boxing. You got to have an exit strategy. So maybe it's commentating. Maybe it's taking the Tim Bradley route. Maybe it's taking the Andre Ward route. Maybe it's taking the Peyton Manning and Tom Brady route, or Tony Romo. If you watch football at all, they went into the announcement table so they can make a cold $1 million a year to subsidize that lifestyle that they were used to living. You need to do something. So if you don't market yourself well like Canelo, and you don't have business endeavors, you need to have something. So promoting is an avenue, and promoting takes a lot of work, and you have to know how to build a team. So that's a great question now that I figured out exactly what you were saying. So you got to know that boxing is only going to be fast money. All right. It's like winning the lottery. 85% of the people that win the lottery are broken in 2 years, because see, people who spend money, you're called consumers. So it's just like putting money in a vacuum cleaner. All right. You can vacuum up $1 million in a day. You can go and blow that. Like so many people have a story of spending $1 million in 8 months like it was nothing, because they're consumers. They don't understand how to be merchants. Merchants make money. Everything that you see tied to me is about making money, because what I'm trying to do is give you guys valuable things that will help you. So therefore you say, okay, in exchange for that, I'll pay you for helping me along the way. You help me with my boxing career. I'll help you right here economically. And I'm going to help you with mentorship. I'm going to help get you and steer you in the right direction. And therefore you won't have to worry about being led wrong, because I'm going to use my 4 decades of experience plus the 134 years with Coach Bradley and Coach Kenny Adams, the most winning coaches in the history of boxing across the board, amateurs and professionals collectively. I'm going to give you what they gave me. And they all reside in these books, all 30 books. And you won't have to worry about that. And then I'm going to make sure that you make deals and know how to build yourself as a brand, and talk to people and connect with an audience and build a great business and learn how to have business relationships. And we got to stop thinking in boxing that we don't belong and nobody really wants us in. They do. You just got to know how to be led to that. And that's what we want to make sure you know, because you are not going to get taught this in school, and you are not going to get taught this in boxing. You only get taught this by people who choose to teach you. And most people want self-gratification. They want to be the best trainer. They want to be the best fighter. They don't want to make sure you're better. So my job is to make sure you're better. And for that, you exchange coin, and I make sure you know how to get coin and success so that you can feed your family. But the system was never designed to help you. That's why all boxers retire broke. Every once in a while, you'll get a Floyd Mayweather and a Sugar Ray Leonard, but everybody else is struggling. Those guys show up most of the time at fights because they are looking for opportunity to make something happen. But we're here to make sure that the system is not going to play you. And because the system is not working for you, it's working against you. You're not going to retire living like Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn knows what to do. He's going to be good when he retires. His dad was good. Bob Arum's going to be good. We just had conversations on call with Bob Arum's team at Top Rank. And, you know, their focus is really Top Rank, not the fighter. Hence is why you see De La Hoya left, Floyd left, Terrence Crawford left, because Top Rank is about Top Rank. And, you know, no one has your back. So you have to learn how to get your own back. So I'm going to, those are the questions. And hopefully I gave you some answers that helped you out. And I'm going to get back to me and Otis. And like I said, you guys are going to learn some good stuff in this last 20 minutes. because Otis really is going to give you some pearls, and hopefully you enjoy it. All right, guys, thanks again. Like I said, if you have questions and you want to learn more, all you have to do on Facebook and Instagram is type the word school and go to your inbox and follow that prompt, and you'll be good. Other than that, be blessed that God speak. Let's work. The second grade of boxing, third grade of boxing, fourth grade, 4 weeks at a time, 6 weeks at a time, 2 months at a time. You're just going. And in a 5-year period of time, you're just like no regular person on the planet could do anything with you. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I created the school, because I know that if you go to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, you can find a guy who understands the sensei of blocking. And then you can go over here to Indiana, and then you can find a guy who got footwork. And then you can get on a plane and go to Cuba and get a little bit of letting your hands go skills. It's like, but how can we get all of this in one place? Because that's not scalable. That's not sustainable. And so that's why we created Champions University inside of the school, man. Because I was like, yo, these guys, and then it'll take you 10 lifetimes to really understand and get it all and really say, I got all of this. I know what I'm doing. And if not, I got the reference guide and the videos to do it, or we do film study. How invaluable would that have been to you if you had that? How much better do you think you would have been if you were able to ingrain that muscle memory in that manner?
Man, I think the skies would have been the limit, because I have all the physical attributes. I even have the cerebral thinking and the ability to absorb knowledge, right? So had I been able to have that at hand, like how you have it, like all in hand, you got to remember, I'm traveling places getting this information, and this wasn't like over a couple of weeks or whatever. This is from like age 24 to like 32. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is like so. Yeah, like it was very old school. I was more like the karate movies, right? Where the sensei teaches you one thing and you learn, and he goes, all right, great job, student. Go to the next village, and there's a guy that's gonna teach you the mongoose style. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like these guys, we're in the information era, so they got to take advantage of that, man. There's stuff that you can learn, like in your doctrine, what you're putting forth. You are essentially having people learn stuff within 2 years that would have took a decade, And in that, don't be in any rush. Don't be in any rush in boxing. That's one thing that I wish I would have slowed down, because if someone challenged me, you're in New York, you're in Australia, Otis Griffin, you ain't gonna come fight me. Do. You know what I'm saying? Slow down your career, man. You can slow down and be way more beneficial, where you don't make all those mistakes and things of that nature. That's one thing that I would have done different. I would have slowed down, because I was already on top of the world. I could have, but for me, I was like, no, right now, I gotta be this, I gotta be that. I need to do this, So, but I would have, if I would have slowed down, and it's not no horror story, like I'm saying this, like I didn't succeed. So, but I see things where I could have been even better, is what I'm saying.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
You're right. And as you said, that was beautiful, man. I think you've said some things, man, that will go viral on YouTube. I'm gonna make sure those inserts get out there, because what you're saying is really the real deal. Plus, you don't get your head cracked if you learn it the right way. Like, you'll never see a master boxing fighter get beat up. That's not gonna happen. He might not win the fight on decision or card. Like, he's just not. If you groom and follow that process, it's just gonna be done right. And not only that, like Sean Ringo said to you, when you had the opportunity to become a star, because you really did, you had the look, you had the whole cachet, guys like you in Hollywood, good God almighty, dude, like you had your own meal ticket written when you were born, and you didn't take advantage of it, nor did you say, okay, I'm gonna market myself even though you were in the right veins, you didn't say, I'm going to go to that next level and market myself, which is what the coaches and trainers learning to do in the school too. How to market. Because I don't care how good you box, unless you hitting like George Foreman and Mike Tyson, knocking guys out every time you fight. Like that, you got to market yourself so more people know who actually connects with you. How do you build a cult following like Manny Pacquiao, like Floyd Mayweather, like Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo? Who wants to fight in the arena with nobody there? So that's a part of it. You're in the entertainment business. In an entertainment, people sell tickets. Whether you're going to see Bono, U2, it doesn't matter. You got to find people who want to see you, people who in their mind love you. That's your cult following. You got to understand that goes with it. Eddie Hearns don't want to see anybody who does not understand that they have a cult, a culture of people that want to be in there. So that has to come with it. It's an ugly part of it, but it's fun when you do learn that you bring people joy that are like you, those little kids that are at home looking at you, wanting to dream to be a boxer like you were, and you chose boxing over being a real star. But Ryan Garcia said, no, if I have to choose between being a legendary fighter and a star, I'm a star. And he admitted it. He just said the reason why is because you're going to get paid continually if you're a star. When your fight career over, people forget about you. Adrian Broner's still fighting and they forgot about him. That's how the sport will do you. So you got to build your brand. You got to know what's next when you fight. That's why one of the things that we are focused on now is transitioning fighters out of their career and to their next career, because that's what they need to be conscious of. It's not going to come to you. You got to go get it, because there's a lot of competition out here now and the internet's available. People are using it. In 2026, it'll be 6 billion people with accounts. That's the whole planet. That's real. So, thanks for dropping that knowledge, and those people appreciate it. But when it's all said and done, when you look at Frank Martin, because this is kind of where that started, how he's been able to develop even without developing that pedigree. When it's all said and done, when the bell rings, how does this fight end?
I think there's two options. If Frank Martin has grown, which could be quite possible, people don't understand how much you grow between fights, because they always say that you're only as good as your last showing. So if you look at Frank's last showing against Alim Hamadin, the Armenian German, it went well at first, and then it got bad towards the end. Hopefully he's learned from that. He's now got his his chin tucked. He's because he's not going to be allowed to make more than one mistake against Tank, because if he does, it's going to be over with. So if I was him, I would incorporate my floating, my circling. Definitely incorporate a jab. People don't really realize how good Frank Martin's jab is, and maybe he doesn't even. But if he uses a jab, he could be an absolute problem. He doesn't have, even though he's taller than Tank, he doesn't have that much more reach than Tank. Tank has long arms for a short guy. So he has to be cautious. He has to float. He has to fight in spots, and he has to jam Tank up. He has to jam him up. What I mean by jamming him up, if I'm in front of you and I'm going to punch you, and you're going to be at the end of I think you're going to be at the end of my punch, you need to somehow end up being here. And that way, now I got to reconfigure the punch, and it's going to take the steam off the punch. Or even as the punch comes and you're trying to hit me and that punch is coming, I just do this. And now instead of that punch coming straight, it gets altered. Things of that nature. That's how Frank can win the fight. He can win the fight on points, especially if Tank allows him to get ahead first. Now, here's reality. how the fight probably is going to go. It's almost like I just got out of a DeLorean. I think Tank's going to give away 5 rounds. He's going to settle in. And then in the 8th round, Frank Martin's going to jump in without footwork, and he's going to get caught by an uppercut, and it's over with.
Yeah, you said the word. He's gonna jump in with no footwork.
Yeah.
That's what will happen when that shit is not ingrained in you. When it is not ingrained in your muscle memory, man. In the DeLorean analogy, like, dude, you own tonight. This guy, I'm telling you, yeah, you. When you paint that picture, it almost smells like that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to give away some rounds, but then I do think that it will take Martin some time to get comfortable. I think he's going to, come out there and establish. And the only thing that I feel like, I think Tank will press him a lot sooner than he typically would bring pressure. Like, just like he did when they sparred. He said, I knew he was scared, so I went right at him. So we went right at him. He ate one. And I think that'll happen. I think when you can't get away from a person, when they can throw a punch, a hard punch, and they can hit you, that's something that can happen over and over again. Maybe not every round, but it'll happen when you least expect it, because the guy has timing and he can punch when he's scared. That's a dangerous person. So I think Tank can set himself up to get hit and to get hurt, probably not knocked out, but in his own mind, he's already paranoid that those kind of things can happen. So for that reason, it's the same reason Floyd didn't really lose many rounds, is because he knew he had no give. He couldn't give anything away because the judges was always going to look to take it away. And he couldn't allow the opponent to get the confidence. So he knew what he was always up against. He stacked the deck against himself before he got in the ring. And that's what I think Tank does too. So I do think that you guys are tuned in. I'm going to go live on Instagram. And I'm going to give you a prediction, because if you're a person that likes to bet, if you're down here in Florida and you go to Hard Rock, you can go to Hard Rock Bet and go do it, because I'm going to give you the pearls. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, because it'll be out the way. And so I have all the data, but I've already seen a couple of things that I needed to see from Tank, which of course, I'm not going to bring up until that day. So tune in on Saturday, and I'm just going to go live. I'm going to pick up my phone, and I'm just going to go live from the phone. I ain't doing none of this production stuff, but I will definitely give you guys some pearls and some stuff that you can hang on to. And I think this kid really is coming to prove something for Earl and those guys. I think he has pride. I think he has family. I think he likes being up here with this level, because he's experiencing things, the kind of shows, the kind of people that he's getting exposure to. Man, this stuff is addictive when you get up here to this level, and being a number one level out here percent influencer in this industry and an authority. I can tell people, you got to be ready to handle the smoke, though, because a lot of responsibility comes up here at this level. It's so much more than what you're used to doing. And you think you're working hard until you get to the highest level of boxing. And then when you get here, you're like, damn, this is their normal. You gotta be a different kind of animal. Yeah, Alexander.
But Alexander was my last fight. My last fight was against Alexander. I had a injury that was suffered in sparring, where my T-rib disconnected from my sternum. So I took a cortisone shot and went in and kept the fight and made it happen. But so one thing I would say is that was a long time ago. That was like 2013 or something, 2000, 14, 13. But I would say that later on, he ended up hurting Adonis Stevenson really bad, almost ending his life. And I didn't understand why, because I thought he was more of a volume puncher than he was a power puncher. And that's what he did. But I will say this. He comes from a great pedigree of boxing, being from the Ukrainian Olympic team and everything. So even in our fight, he would punch in volumes, like try to pin me on the ropes, punch in volumes. Then when I would start my offense, he would make me come to him, trying to walk me into a shot that he could split. But I knew that was coming. So we just went back and forth trying to play mind games with each other for a long time before he finally knocked this rib loose, and then I couldn't continue or whatever. But he is a very cerebral fighter, and a lot of people don't realize that he fought myself and Adonis Stevenson at light heavyweight, meaning that he's going to be the bigger guy in this fight. So not only is he going to have pedigree, the cerebral knowledge over Benavidez, and he's going to be the toughest fight Benavidez has had thus far, even, tougher than Boo Boo and all those other guys. But he's going to weigh more. He's a bigger guy. So this could be an upset in the makes. But, I think Benavidez has more dog in him. But don't slouch on Alexander.
If you found this show informative and you want to see another clip, click right here. And I'll see you soon. Either way, follow for more. So long.
Hey, I said, where my money, man?